and this is why some horror icons should just stay dead. Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover 120 here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review, and this movie review is going to be for the third installment of a certain horror franchise, of two. Now, we all remember, with this horror franchise, I actually reviewed the first film, the remake, and the beginning, and part 2 last year. This week, I also reviewed the Batman series. I'm going to finish reviewing this series because we have you have that direct sequel of that Old Man Leatherface movie that looks like absolute shit, which I can tell is going to suck, coming out. And I know some people are going to be asking me, Movie Lover 20, please review the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Please review the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. When are you going to review the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie? Fine. Because I know you guys are going to be probably asking me to review this movie because I reviewed some of the other films in this franchise. And if I'm going to do that, then I gotta watch all the other damn sequels. I know that movie's gonna be a direct sequel. It's gonna ignore sequels, but if I'm gonna do that, then I think I'm gonna have to review these sequels too, even if it means having to watch The Next Generation. No. That one I am not excited for. This weekend I just watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and before I say my thoughts on it, let's get on with the plot and and how this movie was made. So, the plot of this movie is a couple encounters a perverted gas station attendant who threatens them with a shotgun. They take a deserted path in Texas to seek help, but only meet up with a cannibalistic clan interested in helping themselves to fresh meat. Yeah, that's the plot of this movie. Pretty much same exact thing as the first one, same exact thing as the second one. Some certain Texas visitors go across the path, and they encounter Leatherface, and they encounter a clan of cannibals, known as the infamous Sawyer. I think the Sawyer family. Sorry, I forgot that one. But, yeah, same. Pretty much all these sequels just rehash that same exact thing. But anyway, with that being said, how was this movie made? Well, after the success of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, New Line Cinema decided to buy the rights to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from the Cannon Group with the intention of turning it into a new series. I don't know why. Part of their intent with the new series was to project the title character Leatherface as the primary star, above that of his cannibalistic family. New Line began scouting locations in July 1989. In a statement, they said they were going back to hardcore horror. Shooting took place in Valencia, California later in that month. Well, now I'm just going to let you know, guys, this movie's barely even that scary. That's just a little heads up. This movie does try to go back to hardcore horror, but it barely even acts scary at all because you literally just know how it's going to turn out. Director Jeff Burr wanted Gunnar Hansen to return to the role of Leatherface, but the parties couldn't come to an agreement on financial remuneration. So the film was originally slated for a November 3rd, 1989 theatrical release, but the release date was soon pushed the following year and it opened in 1,107 theaters on January 12, 1990, the dump month for horror movies. When it was released, the reviews for it were terrible. While the first one received critical acclaim and it's seen one of the best horror films in cinema, one of my favorite horror films of all time, And the second one is mixed received by critics, but is averagely liked by versatile fans and horror fans for its darkly comedic tone, and actually did provide a decent end to the story. In fact, I think it's a very underrated sequel. I think it's actually a pretty good sequel if you give it a chance. And plus, at least part 2 actually did try to end the story on a reasonably perfect note. So honestly, I don't know why Hollywood felt they needed to make another one of these, because Leatherface is no Jason, Ghostface, Chucky, Michael, or Freddy, who at least have some good reasons to be returned after their send-offs. Well, Michael didn't really need to be returned, but he still had some pretty good sequels after Halloween 2 1981, but he didn't really need to come back. Because with like Jason, Chucky, Ghostface, and Freddy on the other hand, Jason and Freddy are actually demons who are already dead. Like, Jason was a boy who drowned, and he's kind of he's kind of like a zombified walking corpse who wears a hockey mask, so Jason can't really die. And Freddy was already a child molester who was already killed by parents, and so he's technically kind of a demonic ghost that can kind of return anytime, so at least those two have reasons to come back. With Chucky, yeah, he's a dead person, and he's been destroyed numerous times, but he's a killer doll, and his soul can just find a new doll to possess, really. So the soul of Charles E. Ray never really dies. And as for Ghostface, the only reason Ghostface ever comes back is because some other guy who has a connection to Sidney Prescott gets the idea to don the costume and carry on Ghostface's work. So yeah, those are why those one returns at least work. While Leatherface, well, Michael's not really needed a return, but he does have some good sequels. Leatherface did not need any returns at all. As for my thoughts on this movie, alright, I will admit, it's not as bad as 3D or Leatherface 2017, and it's certainly way better than the next one, which is the next shiteration. It's a massive disappointment compared to 1, 2, the beginning, which is my third favorite, guys, and the remake. Calling a film a polished turd is a fairly popular insult used by audiences and moviegoers today. Like Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 is one of the most defining polished turds I've ever seen. It has some good ideas and has production with decent direction and cinematography to boot, but it just has way too many flaws to ignore. Like, once again, this movie had no reason to exist. Leatherface and his family all died at the end of the second one. Yes, they did die, guys. If you pay attention, if you rewatch the second film and pay attention, they actually did die. They don't explain how Leatherface survived. There's no explanation what happened to Chop Top. All his IMDb plot says he was committed to an asylum, but there is no mention of him whatsoever. The movie doesn't even mention that. Yeah, they don't explain how the whole family even survived the whole thing to begin with. Even though somehow Leatherface is still walking fine, even though he was killed at the end of part 2. Makes no sense. Gone from this movie is the low-budget, gritty feel of the first 2 entries. Leatherface's big budget, shot in Los Angeles instead of Texas. That's another big flaw. Filmed on crystal clear studio cameras, and sprinkled with an undoubtedly expensive soundtrack with various high-profile rock bands of the time. This is obviously a studio-directed film, an attempt at producers trying to widen Leatherface's appeal to a mainstream audience. In some ways, the studio can be successful. It does return to the quite dark and graphic routes of the original movie. And I guess maybe does a good job building up suspense and delivering scares. With this, however, comes its inevitable flaw being a watered-down studio project. The new characters come nowhere near the chaotic, nightmarish inhabitants from the first 2 films. The cannibals are just clearly portrayed by handsome actors such as Viggo Mortensen, which kind of sucks a lot of grit from this film. Like, one cannibal is this wheelchair-bound woman with a synthetic voice who's just that, a woman in a wheelchair. If she were in the first movie, she'd have massive tumors, or her gums would be ridden with disease, or she'd be 900 pounds. But instead, she looks like your average everyday woman. So that was kind of a pointless decision. There's even a suspenseful, slow reveal shot of her face that reveals nothing. How disappointing is that she has not even a single ounce of horror makeup on her face. The only cannibal who really has any distinguishing traits on par with the first 2 is Alfredo. But you still tell the actor is handsome in real life. Even Leatherface himself isn't ugly like in the first 2 films, like he's supposed to be. As he poses dramatically with his stunning hunky mullet and muscles. Again, the backlight in many scenes. This is just what we need, right? A hunky, muscular Leatherface. For no reason, but I will admit, R.A. Malahoff does. I think he does do a pretty good. I think he is a fine Leatherface. He's not terrible, but he doesn't really come anywhere close to like Gunnar Hansen or the remake Leatherface, or even Part 2 Leatherface was also pretty good. But he's what I'll take him over Next Generation's Leatherface. And the normal characters are bland and downright irritating, unlike the pretty believable characters you had in 1, and even the believable female lead you had in Part 2. This one, the lead main role being one of the most lead main male roles, probably one of the most annoying protagonists in any horror film ever, but he's not as annoying as another protagonist in the next one. The writer was obviously even trying to create a realistic, playful relationship between the two leads, but instead comes off as grating and obnoxious. And the only lead I really liked was Ken Foree, because he's, well, Ken Foree being Ken Foree, which I guess is pretty fine. And now, for the good qualities of this movie, the good qualities I have is that I like it does return to the horror routes, or tries anyways. The first film, even if it fails to do so, even the Part 2 had way better horror moments than this one did. Other than that, that's it. And I guess it's more watchable than the next one I'll be talking about. Oh, fuck. I don't want to have to watch that film, but I have to. So anyway, the point is, my recommendation with Leatherface or Texas Chainsaw 3, I'm just going to call it Texas Chainsaw 3, because we already have a movie called Leatherface. Just avoid this movie. It's not worth watching, not even if you love the first 2 and slasher icons. Leatherface should have just been left dead after Part 2 because he doesn't have any motive to be brought back. He is not like one of those already dead killers. He is not Jason or Michael or Freddy or Chucky or Ghostface or Pinhead or those horror icons. Sometimes dead, it's better some characters just stay dead. There are plenty of better horror sequels where the antagonist returns from the dead. Just watch Nightmare on Elm Street 3 or any of the first 3 Friday 13 sequels, and Jason Lives. Just watch any like the Child's Play sequels, or like Halloween 2 or Halloween H20 or the 2018 trilogy. Those are better horror sequels where the antagonist comes back. And at least they actually do it in the right ways possible. Anyway, that's it for my review of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and here's how I'm going to rank this movie. I am going to give Texas Chainsaw 3 a 5.5 out of 10. There we go. That wraps up my review for Texas Chainsaw 3. And I will review the Batman film soon. I mean, I'm watching Batman Returns tonight, and tomorrow I do plan to watch Texas Chainsaw: The Next Generation. Well, I do plan to torture myself to watch The Next Generation tomorrow, because that's going to be torture to watch. But anyway, yeah, until then, that'll be it for this review. Thank y'all for watching, and if you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Lover 120.